Newspaper presses.
As the 1970s drew to a close, Lorraine was working as a reporter for the East Kilbride News. In those days, newsrooms were predominantly run by men and were notoriously challenging workplaces for women to thrive in.
Where I was very lucky, our senior reporter, Joanna McKerricker, as she was then, she's a girl. So I never had these barriers because I could see there was a woman doing the job that I would love to do eventually one day, and there she is. So for me, I didn't really have that experience of total misogyny that I know a lot of women had, particularly in newspapers. And I loved working there. In the end, I had my own page that I could write whatever I wanted. I had my own column. My favourite type of story would have been like human interest stories, people telling me things, people trusting me with amazing stories about their lives. That's what I loved and I thrived on. I really did.
You learn every aspect of being a proper journalist, about the law, about shorthand. You know, literally in those days, with no tape recorders, you'd be taking shorthand notes of everything that you were attending.
To get the story, you actually went out to meet people. You met them in a cafe or a pub or in their house, and you got to talk to them, you got to meet them face to face. You get such great stories if you just go out and talk to people, because on an email or on a mobile call, it's not the same. So I'm really glad that I grew up and I sort of learned my trade, if you like, in that environment.
Everybody knew Lorraine Kelly, East Kilbride News, and started my scrapbook, cut it all out for and put it in my scrapbook.
And at the time, I think there was a cartoon in the Beano or the Dandy, a character called Scoop Kelly. So guess what? Lorraine got the nickname Scoop Kelly. So every time we saw her doing something in East Kilbride News, Scoop Kelly's on the front page again.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. How are you? Let's talk about masks.
Her early life as a journalist and a local journalist has undoubtedly informed just how she is now.
They're not going to be able to do that. It's not workable, surely.
I think one of her great qualities is to disguise the professional journalist under the veneer of being a friendly interviewer.
Lorraine is an iron fist and a velvet glove, and I mean that as a compliment.
There's been lots of accusations about dithering and lack of clarity.
She creates a persona that people think is very benign, very nice, very smiley, but underneath it is a proper journalist.
We're going to make it mandatory from the 24th of July onwards.
OK, but we don't need that amount of time to know how to put a mask on. I think we know how to do that.
If you try and mug off Lorraine Kelly, then you're in trouble.
We know what happened with Dominic Cummings and others. They flouted the law. I know you're shaking your head, but it's true. They flouted the law. They did. They didn't just bend it. They smashed it to smithereens.
I've seen in the 10, 12 years that I've known Lorraine, there's been an edginess that's come out.
OK, I understand. It was interesting you mentioned Pret, because your pal Michael Gove was in there buying something and he didn't have a face mask on, but from now on he will.
There's a sort of brutal edge that I like, and everybody enjoys it. You know, the sort of Lorraine moment each morning. You think, oh, what's she going to say now?
Now, look, some people would say, oh, he's a bit boring. He's a bit dull. Does that not drive you mad? Or do you think maybe we need a bit of boring? Do you know what I mean?
I couldn't care less.
OK.
It's part of our character. You know, we're not very effusive as a nation, but when push comes to shove, we can separate the bull from the shit.
Lorraine has details of what's coming up at 9. Morning.
Good morning.
On our programme on Good Morning Britain, we talk to Lorraine every morning about what's coming up. I remember the time when Jennifer Arcuri was on.
Who had allegedly had an affair with Boris Johnson and was saying a lot of stuff, but wouldn't answer direct questions about the relationship.
Well, I'm not going to go anywhere near the relationship question.
And it became sort of comical and pointless.
Was it an affair?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Well, come the Lorraine moment, when Lorraine Kelly appears on Good Morning Britain viewers' screens in order to trail what's going to happen in her show.
Lorraine.
Yeah. God, that was crazy, wasn't it?
I knew what she'd be thinking. I cut to Lorraine. You could just see how scathing Lorraine, her face was just scathing.
What's the point? Coming on not answering any questions. Point that. Anyway, and
after we'd done, I don't know, a 6, 7, 8-minute interview with Jennifer Arcuri, Lorraine's presence on our programme completely dismantled the entire interview.
What is the point of you coming on the TV to clear the air and then you don't say anything?
Why? I believe I said a few things. What is it that you're looking for that I say?
Well, you didn't answer any of the questions that were put to you, and I just don't see the point of you coming on, to be honest. Anyway, let me tell you what's coming on after 5:30.
That is Lorraine at her best. She didn't have to say very much. She never says very much that's negative about people, but the facial expressions, the exasperation, the dismissive look, lethal.
Lorraine working on a tablet.
I don't have scripts anymore, paper scripts. What I do is I just sort of put everything on here. I don't write down questions, I just write down bullet points, of the way that I'd quite like the interview to go, bearing in mind it's a conversation, it can go any way.
What did you actually say that resulted in that sort of graffiti, death threats, all of that?
When I'm interviewing somebody, it's really instinctive. I just always make sure that I've done as much preparation as I possibly can. I'm not a fan of the gladiatorial style of interview. I don't think you get enough information, particularly from a politician, if you never actually give them a chance to talk.
It's so divisive. It is the issue that could lose it for you. It's the one that people feel most passionate about, and maybe they're wrong, maybe they're right.
No,
but
I think people are right to see that immigration is an important issue, and it is a challenge to control it.
I mean, that's not to say let them waffle on, and have it all their own way, but I do like to hear what they've got to say, even if I fundamentally disagree with everything that they're saying.
Well, we've been able to have a conversation because I don't agree with everything that you're saying at all. I know. But that's okay.
It's up to the viewers to make their mind up, not me.
Back at the newspaper.
After 5 years at the East Kilbride News, I felt ready to move on. I was always wanting to test myself. I thought, I wouldn't mind having a try at the BBC. Well, I applied for every job under the sun at the BBC. But eventually, I think I wore them down, and they gave me a job as a researcher. And they used to send me out to do vox pops and, to talk to people. And I thought, I'd love to be a reporter one day. That was the aim. That was my absolute ambition, was to be a reporter on TV, to tell the story. Brilliant. The big boss pulled me in to the office, and I thought he was going to offer me a job. And I remember him taking his glasses down and looking at me and said, "You're never going to make it in television, not with that accent. You're going to have to go and get elocution lessons. It's not going to happen." And I was crushed. The next day, I found out there was a job going at TV1. I picked up the phone. I asked to get put through to, the big boss. And he said, "Oh, yeah, come down for an audition." So I went down, did the audition, and as the boss was Australian, all he heard was a Scottish accent. He didn't hear a working-class Glasgow accent. He just heard a Scottish accent, and gave me the job, which was amazing, because you didn't have people sounding like me on the telly at that time.
The less said about that kind of thing, the better. I mean, that's a nonsense. She's made it because of her accent.
She definitely has paved the way for other presenters, and the likes of me, who have different accents. She makes you feel like you can own your accent and be proud of it.
Growing up in Northern Ireland and sounding the way that I do, there weren't that many people on the telly back in the day with regional accents. And I think that's why it really resonated with me, and she always just stood out from the crowd.
You didn't have people sounding like Anton Deck. You really didn't. People spoke either with an English accent or very RP, received pronunciation, or with a very posh Edinburgh accent if you were in Scotland. So I guess in a way it was kind of trailblazing, and I like to think that there's been particularly little girls looking at me and going, she can do that, so can I. Being working class and having an accent like mine doesn't hold you back.
And so say all of us. Well, that's it. Around Britain and around the world at 7:10. There'll be more on the half hour. Now, though, it's back to Lorraine Kelly.
The titles of TV1.
Today, breakfast television is a staple of the British TV schedule. But back in 1984, when Lorraine joined TV1 as Scotland correspondent, it was still in its infancy.
What I liked about TV1 was the fact they were a bit maverick, because nobody knew whether breakfast television was actually going to work or not. And there was a lot of people sort of throwing their hands up and saying, "This is outrageous. What are we doing?" Encouraging people to watch television in the morning. We've heard claims from all over the country that their fish and chips are the best in the land. The job was amazing. I got to cover everything.
For the people who live in these islands, it's an important link with the outside world.
Absolutely everything.
For the moment, Glasgow belongs to the double-deckers.
And also I love the fact that you could kind of be yourself. But I think it'd be difficult to beat Scotland's secret weapon, the haggis supper.
Lorraine Kelly, TVAM, in Largs. I'm here in the Lost Valley, high in the mountains of Glencoe.
Not only was it the best job in the world, working as a correspondent at TVAM, one morning in walks Stephen Smith, our new member of the crew. And I just looked at him and I thought, he's the one. I knew right away. We just clicked. And, you know, obviously we knew that working together 24/7, it has to be right. Because in a small crew like that can be really awkward if you're going out with somebody and then it all goes horribly wrong. And actually, it made the job an awful lot easier. Well, if we had to scramble the crew, I just nudged them and we were away, you know. Nobody could understand why. TVAM, they're always here, like, really fast. And it always worked.
It worked so well, in fact, that in 1992, they married at Mains Castle in Dundee. And over 30 years later, they're still going strong.
Lorraine Kelly, 40 unforgettable years.